This is it, everyone. This is the grand finale. This is the culmination of my rapid prototyping final project. So what you see in front of you is a graph that we've become really familiar with over the past couple of weeks. That's the academic graph for this node in the center here. Again, this node in the center represents a randomized student, and the nodes around it represent the classes that the students enrolled in and the different students that are enrolled in that class with them. But what's cool about the data that we're working with, and as a reminder, the data that we're working with is student engagement data at the University of Colorado, is that there's tons of different dimensions to that student data. So again, we can use the leap motion to navigate this data. So here we can, as a reminder, we can go ahead and tap on these nodes and learn about each of these nodes. But because we are more interested in different ways that students are related other than how they're academically related, we can now switch in between different modes of this graph. And so if you look back at my scenarios, what my goal with this project was to enable a user to navigate all the different types of graphs that we have in our database. So today we're going to kind of move away from this this academic graph, and I'll show you two other classes of graphs that we've been working on. So if I go ahead and activate the leap motion control here, we have a new gesture, and that is a screen tap gesture. So if I push in with a finger, you'll see that it goes ahead and loads a new graph. Now this is a completely new breed of graph, and it looks completely different, which is exciting because it's exposing different relationships. And the relationships that this graph is exposing, these are interest relationships. So if I go ahead and tap on one of these, this is an interest that this user has expressed. This is an interest in social entrepreneurship. As a reminder, Varsity collects interest from tons of different users, so we can see different interests that the user has. So so we can tap on this one. Oops, sorry. I'm gonna go back for a second. I'll get there, I promise. I'll tap on this interest. For example, let's look at this interest here: fashion design. Now, what's really interesting about our Varsity database is, oops, activated that one again, is that not only do we have interests, but we have interests that are related to other interests. So you'll see in this graph, we kind of have two circles forming. We have this inner circle here and this outer circle here. This inner circle are all the interests that this user has expressed a direct interest in. So for example, education. But we've got all these ancillary interests that the user could potentially be interested in because they're related to education or related to one of the interests. So for example, we can look at this interest, Christianity, and then we can look at a related interest, which is art. I think I randomized these interests, again, for the protection, so this relationship doesn't actually mean anything. But on the unrandomized data actually does mean something really meaningful, but for privacy, I randomized all this stuff. Then the other thing that we're looking at with this graph is if you look at the center here, there's lots of different user nodes. So we can actually examine one of those. This is another user in our system. And what we're seeing about this are these are users that have mutual interests as our user in question. And so again, in Varsity, what we would do with that is we would use that to establish similarity profiles between the users. But a really interesting, cool graphical way to look at all this data, and I like how each different graph that we look at has its own kind of DNA. So I did another screen tap gesture, so you can see that these screen tap gestures are switching me through the different types of graphs. I can do one again to get back to this graph, and then I'm going to screen tap again to get to our last type of graph. And this one is our social graph. So what we've done with our Varsity users is we asked them to connect their Facebook to the application, and then we've extracted their social data here. This is one of my favorite types of graphs because we really get some really interesting cohorts evolving here. So you can kind of see that these are mutual friends between this one and this one, or this one, this is someone who has mutual friends between this cohort, and our primary user here. So again, I can tap on each of these. Oops. Wrong gesture. Still kind of learning my own system, but I can tap on one of these, and these are all users in the system, so we can get user data from them. Again, these names are randomized, so it doesn't actually mean anything real, but kind of cool that we're starting to see relationships form. So I'm really excited about the progress that I made on this rapid prototyping project. It was a fun opportunity to play with the Leap Motion as an interaction device, and what it does is it opens up tons of different degrees of freedom. I can now use the keyboard to lock down different things. So if we want, we can pull apart the social graph so we can take a look at cohorts specifically. But then I don't have to rely on clicks and stuff to have this completely different interaction mechanism for changing graphs or for interacting with the graph and extracting data from the graph. So it was a fun experiment with data, but it was also a fun experiment with Leap Motion, and I learned a lot both when it comes to the Leap Motion, the Leap.js SDK, but also when it comes to D3 and data visualization. So really happy with the semester, and can't wait to show this off. Let's see, is it next Monday or so when we have our expo. So thanks so much, and have a great night.